At my baby shower, my mother-in-law stood up and announced, "We'll be taking the baby home with us for the first month so she can learn how to raise him right." Everyone laughed. I didn't. When I pulled my husband aside, he said, "Don't make a scene. It's just a joke." But that night, I found a nursery already set up in their house, with our baby's name on the wall. I took a picture, packed a bag, and left. 3 weeks later, she filed for grandparent custody. I want to be clear. I never wanted drama. I'm not one of those women who hates her in-laws or starts fights over every little thing. I used to think I was lucky. My husband Mark and I had been together 5 years, married for 2. He's quiet, polite, always the one to smooth things over. His mom, though, Pat, was something else. From the moment we got engaged, Pat acted like it was her wedding. She offered to help, then tried to control everything. She picked the flowers. Tried to choose my dress. When I said no to her guest list additions, she cried and said I was tearing the family apart. Mark always said the same thing, "That's just how she is. She doesn't mean anything by it." I let it go. Over and over. When we got pregnant, it got worse. At first, I thought it was just excitement. She bought onesies the week we told her. Texted me baby name suggestions nonstop. Called my bump her baby. Again, Mark said, "That's just how she is." And I told myself it wasn't worth fighting over. But then things crossed a line. She tried to come to every OB appointment. I told her it wasn't necessary, Mark was going with me, but she still showed up to 3 of them uninvited, and just sat in the waiting room. She told her friends she was having a grandson. She posted ultrasound pics on her Facebook. I asked her to take them down. She said I was being selfish. Still, I told myself it would pass once the baby was here. I was wrong. The baby shower was supposed to be the one thing that felt normal. My sister planned it in our living room, soft colors, homemade cupcakes, a few games. It was sweet. Relaxed. Until Pat grabbed her wine and stood up in the middle of everyone and said, "We'll be taking the baby home with us for the first month so she can learn how to raise him right." Everyone laughed. Everyone. Except me. I felt my stomach drop. I looked around, surely someone else would say something? But no. Her church friends giggled. One of Mark's cousins clapped. Even my mom gave this weak smile like she didn't want to cause a scene. I turned to Mark. He looked uncomfortable but didn't say a word. So I pulled him into the kitchen and said, "What the hell was that?" He looked at me like I was the problem. "Don't make a scene," he whispered. She was joking. She just gets excited. You know that. But I knew it wasn't a joke. Something about the way she said it. She was already planning it. I should have trusted my gut sooner. That night, after everyone left, Mark said he was going to his parents' house to drop off leftover cupcakes. I asked if he wanted help carrying stuff. He said no, he'd be back in 20 minutes. I waited 10, then drove over anyway. I don't even know why. Something felt off. When I got there, I knocked. No answer. So I let myself in with the spare key Pat had insisted I take months ago, just in case of emergency. The house was quiet. I called Mark's name. Nothing. Then I walked past the guest room. And saw it. A nursery. Not just a crib or a few toys. A full room. Blue walls. New carpet. A glider chair. Diaper genie. Changing table. Baby monitor. A whole wall of books. And right above the crib, Aiden. Our baby's name. In big, white letters. My hands were shaking. I took out my phone. Snapped a photo. Left. Quietly. Calmly. Drove home. Packed a bag. Called my sister. Moved in with her that night. Mark didn't even call until the next morning. Said I was overreacting. Said the nursery wasn't even finished yet. Like that made it better. 3 weeks passed. I didn't move back. I didn't respond to his texts. I stayed with my sister, got a lawyer, started thinking through my options. Mark kept asking to talk in person. I didn't trust myself not to slap him. Then one morning, a letter arrived. Certified mail. From a lawyer. Pat was suing for grandparent custody. Said I was unstable. Said I had abandoned the marital home. Said I was emotionally erratic and unfit to care for an infant without proper supervision. She used the term emergency guardianship. She actually filed in family court. Had a whole packet of pictures of her damn nursery as proof of stability. I found out later she even asked Mark to testify on her side. I was 38 weeks pregnant. That's when I realized this wasn't just obsession. It was a plan. She thought she could take my baby. She thought I'd roll over. She had no idea what I was capable of. I didn't cry. Not even when I read the words emergency guardianship. I just stared at the paper, then laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was insane. My own husband hadn't even called me since the letter showed up. That silence said everything. So I lawyered up. My attorney, Jenna, was sharp, no nonsense, and had dealt with toxic in-laws before. When I showed her the photo of the nursery, she stared at it for a long time and said, "This isn't normal. This isn't even borderline. This is calculated." We filed a response the same week. Jenna added my prenatal records, messages from Pat telling me what a lazy, unprepared mother I'd be, and screenshots of texts where Mark sided with her. We also asked for an emergency restraining order, on the grounds of emotional harassment and attempted custodial interference. Jenna didn't stop there. She told me to start documenting everything. Every text. Every call. Every time they drove by my sister's house. Yes, that happened. Twice. Then I made the hardest decision of my life. I told Jenna I wanted full custody. No visitation for Pat. And limited, supervised visitation for Mark, if he even wanted it. Because by that point, I had no doubt, he'd picked her side. Still, the idea of raising Aiden completely alone scared me. I hadn't wanted to be a single mom. I'd wanted a family. But not like this. Not under someone's thumb. Not with my child being treated like theirs. The week before my due date, Jenna got an urgent email. Pat had scheduled a home visit with CPS. Claimed I was living in unsafe conditions. She said my sister's apartment was crowded and that she heard there were drugs in the home. It was all lies. But CPS still had to investigate. A social worker showed up unannounced. She was polite, firm, and within 10 minutes, she could see it was a waste of her time. The apartment was clean, calm, and stocked with everything a baby could need. My sister's boyfriend was in the military, clean record, no drugs, no issues. Still, the visit shook me. I was 9 months pregnant and had to open my door to prove I wasn't a threat to my own baby. That night, I stood in the shower and cried. Not because I was weak, but because I was done holding it in. The next day, I got a message from Mark. Not a phone call. A message. "I don't know why you're making this so hard. She's not trying to take the baby, she just wants to help. You're being selfish. This is why she thinks you're unstable." That's when something inside me snapped. I didn't reply. I sent the message straight to Jenna. Then I told my sister I wanted to press forward with a restraining order against both of them, Pat and Mark. The hearing was set for 2 weeks after my due date. I was scheduled to be induced that Monday. And I made a decision before going into that hospital, I would not tell them when I gave birth. No calls. No pictures. No name announcements. My son would enter this world without them knowing a thing. And I would make damn sure they never laid hands on him. Labor was rough. 18 hours, no sleep, and they had to do an emergency C-section when Aiden's heart rate dropped. I remember lying there, numb from the chest down, staring at the ceiling while the doctors worked, wondering if any part of my life would ever feel normal again. When I heard Aiden cry, I didn't cry with him, I just let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. It was over. Or so I thought. We stayed in the hospital for 4 days. I didn't post anything. Didn't tell a soul outside of my sister and my attorney. I wanted that time. Just me and Aiden. But somehow, they found out. On the 5th morning, a nurse walked in and asked, "Are you ready for your visitors?" I blinked. "What visitors?" "Your husband and mother-in-law. They've been asking about your room number for hours." My blood ran cold. I told the nurse they weren't allowed in. I showed her the restraining order, even though it hadn't gone into effect yet, it was filed but not finalized. The nurse nodded and left. 10 minutes later, hospital security came to my door. "We need you to confirm that Mark, last name, is not allowed access to the baby. He's listed on the birth certificate." I froze. What? Apparently, Mark had gone to the birth certificate office at the hospital and claimed he was my husband, then tried to get a copy. I hadn't even filed the certificate yet. But he knew our plan. He knew what I'd name our son. So he thought he could beat me to it. That's when I realized he'd been working behind the scenes this whole time. The nursery. The lies to CPS. The lawyer. Pat was the front. He was the one pushing the moves. I told the hospital staff he had no right to see me or the baby. They posted a red tag on the door. Private room. No visitors without approval. Security escorted them out of the building. But the damage was already done. That night, Jenna called me. He filed an emergency petition. He's asking for joint custody. And he attached a paternity acknowledgement form. Dated 2 days ago. He was trying to force his way in legally. Saying I was hiding the baby. Saying I was unstable and vindictive. Saying he was scared for the child's well-being. It was full of lies. But one line stuck with me. "She is trying to separate me and my mother from our child." Our child. Not my son. Not even his son. Theirs. I didn't sleep that night. I held Aiden in my arms and rocked him and promised him something out loud, like a prayer: "They won't get you. I swear to God, they won't get you." I didn't go home after the hospital. I moved in with my cousin Ellie, out in Dayton. Different county. Smaller town. Safe. She had cameras on her porch, her driveway, and a big steel lock on the back gate. Her husband was ex-police. She didn't ask questions. Just cleared out the guest room and helped me set up a bassinet. Jenna filed a counter-petition that week, along with the final version of the restraining order. The court date was set. Mark had no idea where I'd gone. He couldn't serve me, couldn't contact me, couldn't find out where the baby was. I kept everything off social media, changed my number, and notified the hospital to seal my medical records from non-consenting family. But it wasn't over. 2 weeks later, I got an email. It was a picture of me leaving Ellie's house, carrying Aiden in his car seat. Below it, one sentence: "See you soon, Mommy." No name. No number. Just that. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I took it straight to Jenna, and we took it straight to court. The judge fast-tracked our case. And that's when things started unraveling, for them. We subpoenaed security footage from the hospital. It showed Mark trying to bribe a front desk nurse to let him into the maternity wing after hours. We subpoenaed Pat's call logs. She had made over 60 calls to CPS in 2 months. All under different names. Anonymous tips. Different voices. It was her the whole time. We got their emails. Pat had written to her lawyer that she wasn't worried about custody because Mark's name is on the house and the baby will be back with us by fall. She called Aiden her baby in almost every message. And then came the best part. Ellie's neighbor, a retired mailman who loved sitting on his porch, had taken a picture of a woman standing across the street from our house. Long coat. Sunglasses. Holding a phone up. Right when I was walking out with Aiden. We zoomed in. It was Pat. She had followed me. Across counties. Through court orders. And she sent that picture as a threat. That was the nail in her coffin. At the hearing, my lawyer laid it all out. The stalking. The false CPS reports. The fake paternity form. The unauthorized nursery. The photograph. The intimidation. All of it. Mark sat there stone-faced, wearing a suit he didn't belong in. Pat wore white. Like she thought it made her look innocent. Then it was my turn to speak. I told the judge everything. From the first time Pat tried to come to an OB visit, to the baby shower, to finding the nursery. I showed the hospital letter. The restraining order. The CPS visit. The picture. And then I ended with this: I'm not an unfit mother. I'm a mother who's had to fight like hell just to be left alone with my child. I've had to hide, run, and be quiet, for their comfort. But I'm done being quiet. This is my son. Not theirs. Not his. Not anyone's but mine. The judge ruled the same day. Restraining order, granted. Permanently. Mark, denied joint custody. Ordered supervised visitation, once a month, at a court facility. Pat, no contact, no visitation, no rights. The judge even said, "This is one of the most disturbing displays of entitlement and manipulation I've ever seen." But it didn't end there. I filed for divorce the next morning. And then I sold the house. Mark didn't fight it. He couldn't. His name wasn't on the deed, I'd bought it before we got married. His credit was crap, and I had the paper trail. I sold it fast, moved 2 states away, and started over. Now it's just me and Aiden. He's almost 2. He's healthy, curious, and funny as hell. He's got my eyes. My laugh. He doesn't know who Pat is. He barely remembers Mark. And that's the way I want it. Because I'm not raising him to be polite to people who want to own him. I'm raising him to know he belongs to no one but himself. And every time I see him sleep in peace, I know the truth. They thought they could steal my baby. But I stole back my whole damn life.